If you have a question about fitness or nutrition, ask Tafiq. Hey there, this is Tafiq Akhir, America's Healthy Lifestyle Coach, and welcome to Ask Tafiq. And the question I'm being asked today comes from Jennifer in Los Angeles, California, and she asks, what is gluten and why is it so bad? And what is this trend to go gluten-free? Okay, well, gluten is a sticky protein substance that is found in grains like barley, rye, spelt, oats, kamut, and wheat. Now, gluten is what gives bread and other baked goods the chewy texture that we love so much, and it's what holds the dough together. The thing about gluten is that the human body is not actually designed to digest and consume high levels of gluten. So the reason that so many people are becoming more and more intolerant to gluten is because the gluten consumption today has dramatically increased. And that's even just within the past 5 years. So we're eating more gluten today than we ever have in history here in America. And so another big problem that is coming up is that when people think about gluten, they primarily just think about it in regards to bread or wheat or some other sort of grain. The problem there is that our food manufacturers have found that the glue-like characteristics of gluten can also serve as a stabilizer and a thickener for foods and can help to extend the shelf life of many processed foods. So gluten has been added to a number of processed foods to extend their shelf life. And so, but the caveat to that, of course, is that that means that also it increases gluten consumption in the general public. Gluten has been added to ketchup, cold cuts, beer, salad dressings, rice dishes, pasta dishes, chips, candy, bouillon, vitamins, meat substitutes, lip balm, and of course any cake, bagel, muffin, cracker, cereal, or any processed food that has flour in it. Now, it used to be that the only gluten that we would consume would be maybe the bread that we had for lunch or on a sandwich, or the occasional cookie or piece of pie that we had on the weekend. But now many people are eating a diet that is highly processed with high levels of gluten. And as always, too much of anything is not good for you. And that's especially if it's not good for you to begin with. And when we consume things that have a negative effect on our bodies are going to react. 99% of people with a gluten sensitivity do not know that they have it. Again, 99% of people with a gluten sensitivity don't even know that they have it. And oftentimes, they're actually suffering from a lot of symptoms or what's the word I want to use? The effects that too much gluten would have on the body, but they don't attribute it to the gluten because they're not aware that gluten has that effect. And some things that gluten does affect is bloating, arthritis, gas, lack of mental clarity, indigestion, heartburn, anxiety, dementia, constipation, infertility, diarrhea, vomiting, hemorrhoids, migraines, acne, hives, itchy skin, osteoporosis, IBS, fatigue, fibromyalgia, inflammation, unexplained mood swings, and these are just some of the things that have been directly linked to consumption of too much gluten. Now, a study in the Journal of American Medical Association found that people with an intolerance to gluten have a 35% increased risk of early death related to heart disease and cancer. Gluten sensitivity causes inflammation throughout the entire body. It can affect the brain, the digestive tract, the heart, joints, and just about any system or organ within the body. So I think that a lot of the noise, per se, that is being made about going gluten-free and things like that are because a lot of this information is being made more known as to what gluten does to the body, and just the fact that there is so much gluten that is being added to our foods. And I know that it seems as though it's a trend and it might be a fad that's going on. And I know I've heard people say, they can't stand when people talk about gluten-free or what's gluten-free all about. Well, I have to say that for me, I'm glad to see it. And I have a personal connection to it. And that's because several years ago, about 4 years ago to be exact, I had a food allergy test done. And I found that I am actually allergic to wheat and gluten. So for me, it's more than an insensitivity or intolerance. I am actually allergic to gluten. And after I did the research and I found out about all those foods that I just mentioned that have gluten added to them, I didn't think I'd ever be able to eat some of my favorite foods or have some of my favorite condiments again. But thankfully, there are gluten-free foods that are available and becoming more visible for people not only that want to avoid gluten like me, but for those people that may be suffering from some of those issues that I mentioned before. It's good for them to have alternatives in the event that they want to eliminate gluten, just to see if their issues clear up. I know that for me, once I removed gluten from my diet, my digestion improved, my energy increased, and I became more focused. I had also been suffering for years from a skin irritation, for about 7 years to be exact, and I went to dermatologists. I took pills, I used different creams. Nothing got rid of the skin irritation. Once I stopped eating gluten, within 2 weeks, the skin irritation was gone. And I'm certain that that's what it was, because even to this day, if I go out to dinner and I have a piece of bread, or if I go to a party and have some cake, I get a flare-up of the skin irritation. And it only happens when I eat foods that have gluten in them. And for you guys, just remember that just because gluten-free foods are available, that doesn't mean that you have to eat them. If you're not suffering from any of the issues mentioned, going gluten-free doesn't really pertain to you. But if you have an issue and you want to go gluten-free for a few weeks to see if you feel better and to eliminate an issue, removing gluten could prove to be beneficial for you. I hope that cleared things up for you regarding gluten and going gluten-free. And if you have any questions you'd like addressed pertaining to fitness, nutrition, and healthy lifestyle, please be sure to leave your question on my Facebook or YouTube page. To your health and fitness, I'm Tafiq Akhir.